On May 1st, 2013, Jaden Smith tweeted, "How can mirrors be real if our eyes aren't real?" This is the Museum of Twitter, the show we talk about the most important tweets in the history of Twitter.com. It's Subscriber Sunday, where my Patreon subscribers get to nominate and then vote on which tweet I cover, and they chose what is probably the patron saint of fake deep tweets. Well, it's unfair to Jaden to call it fake deep, because I'm sure he thought he was being deep, but this isn't actually that deep in my opinion. At first glance, it seems like nonsense, and it really is nonsense, but I do want to share what his explanation was for what he meant by it. A few years after the tweet, he was asked what it meant in an interview with the Huffington Post, and this is what he had to say. This one comes from a study that a scientist was saying that the way the eyes perceive reality is not the way we actually see it. So like, we can only see 3 base colors, but there's so much more on the electromagnetic spectrum of light that we could see, but our eyes are just not capable of seeing, which brought me to the realization that what we see on an everyday basis is not actually what's there. It's actually only what we take in. And I also took in another study that our eyes are kind of like mirrors in a sense to where they perceive things and then they flip. We take in the information upside down, and then the brain flips it right side up so we can see it right side up. And I was like, if we take in the raw visual information upside down and mirrors portray things in reverse, then they're not real. We're living in the Matrix. So what he's basically talking about is how our eyes don't actually perceive reality as it is, and mirrors also augment reality, so therefore none of this stuff is real. Now, I would call this fake deep because it's not actually saying anything about the state of the universe. It's actually just a semantic argument over what the word real means. Like, I personally would not agree that just because our eyes are not capable of taking in every bit of electromagnetic radiation that exists, that means that what we see isn't real. Because if no one is capable of perceiving everything in the electromagnetic spectrum, and no being is, then no one perceives anything that's real, and so at that point, what's the purpose of the word real? I know I'm talking in circles here, but I think the point I'm trying to illustrate is that, like, yeah, you can deconstruct any word or phrase this much if you think about it like that. In my opinion, only a fake deep person would learn these facts about the way that we perceive the world, and about how mirrors work, and be like, yup, this means that none of this is real. And as you'll remember, if you were on Twitter at this time, this tweet was roundly mocked by everyone back then, especially because Jaden Smith is, you know, the son of Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith. He was seen as a massive nepo baby before that was even a term. And so there definitely was a feeling of like, yeah, of course this kid with super rich and famous parents thinks that he's interesting. And there are a lot of people who would say that Jaden has evolved past this, he's done better acting work, he's done some interesting stuff in fashion, but then he shows up to the Grammys wearing a house on his head, and so personally, I would disagree with that completely. I think he's exactly the same fake deep nepo baby that he was back then. Jaden actually doubled down on this tweet in 2018. Now obviously he's aware of its impact, and I think he was doing this to be funny, but he did tweet it again, but in Portuguese. And yeah, this tweet gets quoted all the time, whether in reference to Jaden Smith or not. When A. Percolator used one of those apps to see what celebrity she looks like, and she got Jaden Smith, she tweeted the results with, "How can mirrors be real if our eyes aren't real?" The Who Burrito said that she can't take Will Smith movies seriously since his son said, "How can mirrors be real if our eyes aren't real?" After Justin Timberlake released the song Mirrors, Jesus Nice said, "Explain, Justin," quoting the Jaden Smith tweet. During the early weeks of the pandemic, Holly Mackenzie Sutter quote tweeted Jaden's tweet and said, "Me to myself after 5 weeks alone in my apartment." And yes, when there was that extremely popular video asking, "How does the mirror know what's behind this piece of paper?" multiple people quote tweeted Jaden Smith's "How can mirrors be real if our eyes aren't real?" For the record, the basic explanation of this is that a mirror is not just reflecting directly what's in front of it, it is triangulating it with your eyes. So if the mirror's here, your eyes are here, and the egg is here, the mirror is perceiving it because your eyes are perceiving it. Multiple people have used it as a caption for mirror selfies like Art Pop and Nito, and people have replaced the word mirrors with different things. Like a Morton Broke posted this funny photo of Martin Scorsese edited with the caption, "How can cinema be real if our eyes aren't real?" Symbionic asked, "How can climate change be real if our eyes aren't real?" And on the day of the 2016 election, Esmeralda Fitzmonster tweeted, "How can this election be real if our eyes aren't real?" And just a few years ago, when Will Smith released a snippet to his song where there was a video of him singing the words into a mirror, he captioned his posts with, "How can mirrors be real if our eyes aren't real?" And this tweet has really remained in the public consciousness because Jaden Smith continues to be this type of guy. And as much as I don't like this type of guy, clearly Jaden Smith is comfortable being this type of guy. And I should definitely cut him a little slack. He was raised by Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith, and no one who was raised in that house with that damn red table could ever come out normal. Follow me for a new tweet every day and consider subscribing, patreon.com/museum of Twitter. But more important than that, on the 22nd, I am hosting a charity live stream raising money for the Trevor Project, which is a charity that helps LGBTQ youth. Please donate now. If you donate $10 or more before Monday at midnight, you are entered to win a signed copy of whatever Dragonfly Jones tweet you want. That's Drogon's throat. That's when Jason Whitlock rocked himself back and forth holding his fedoras to his chest. Any of his tweets you can have signed and he'll send it to you. So donate and send your receipt to museumoftwitter@gmail.com.